have to ask. Hello, welcome all to the Scrum Masters of the Universe. We have today with us Lavaneesh Gautam, and yeah, who's waving? Thank you, Lavaneesh. Lavaneesh is a certified professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org, bringing a whopping decade of experience in Agile and Scrum practices. He has a rich portfolio of working with diverse organizations from startups to Fortune 500 companies across multiple industries. He enjoys dedicating his time to helping startups, particularly those focused on environmental welfare. So we did hear someone reading the book about malaria, right? I'm just trying to cross connect there. Thank you. Lavnish, it's all up to you now. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. Take it away.
Okay. How are we all? That's wonderful. Okay, so you guys can hear me, so that's a good sign, and hope you guys can see me as well. And now I'm going to share something, so please shout out or show thumbs up that if you can see my screen share. Yeah, awesome. Okay, yes. So guys, so today what we are going to talk about is I think one of the hardest concept of the Scrum framework. Actually, to me, definition of done, and this is where I'm going to talk about few things, about few dysfunctions that I have experienced while working as a product owner, a Scrum Master, Agile coach in the many organization, and I will talk about few tips and techniques as well, that how we can actually master the art of done. Okay, so. Again, mastery is very difficult as well. So, but probably you can take few tips and techniques and start as well. Okay. So let's move on with this. I'll not talk about this because I have already been introduced, but people, if you want to connect with me, if you want to know more, when I will be sharing this PDF slides and all, you will see this link so that you can connect with me on the LinkedIn. And if you want to ask me any questions regarding the Scrum, product, Kanban and all, please feel free. Okay. Maybe I cannot answer straight away, but I will definitely answer at one point of time. Okay. So let's first talk a little bit about what is definition of done. And here I have got my two favorite quotes about this topic from the source of the Scrum, which is the Scrum Guide 2020. Okay. So the first one actually talking about is the definition of done is the formal description of the state of increment. Okay, so definition of done is the commitment that resides in the one of the artifact of the Scrum framework called increment, and it talks about the quality. Okay, the quality, product quality that your customers and your users are looking for, and also the technical quality sometimes your customers and the users they cannot see, but also very essential for the success of your product in itself as well. Okay, so definition of done, it's about the quality in itself. Now if you see that there's a second code which I have brought in as well, which is talking about the increment, that in order to provide value, increment must be usable. And if the definition of done is the commitment to support the increment, definition of done defines what is the usable means for your product. Okay, and it is all about the feedback. Okay, it can be used by few users, many users, and all. It depends, but it should be usable. It should be valuable. It is sometimes you can say potentially releasable as well. So if you start thinking from that perspective, what makes our product potentially releasable, valuable, usable, you will start coming up with your definition of done as well. And here I would like to stress one thing. Definition of done is for the product, for the increment. Sometimes people, they get confused that each product item has got its own definition of done. It's an acceptance criteria. Definition of done is an overarching thing that applies to the product. It applies to the increment in itself. Okay. So if you look at this picture, which is the Scrum framework, so you can see that definition of done. I'll bring my laser pointer here. So it is related with one of the artifact called increment. However, this definition of done can be used in the sprint planning, can also be used in the daily scrum, can also be used in the sprint review, can also be used in the sprint retrospective, something I will talk about in a moment as well. But I just wanted to show you that where actually you can see the definition of done in the scrum framework in itself. Okay. So, as I said, that I'm going to have this chat around few dysfunctions, or you can say the anti-patterns which I have seen. So, it will be less theoretical. It will be more about me sharing my experience working with quite a number of products in past 15, 16 years. So, I have selected 5 top most important dysfunction on the anti-pattern related with the definition of term. Okay. So, the first one. Okay. First one is about not having the pragmatic or the practical definition of done. I have seen many Scrum teams which have got a definition of done which they cannot even meet with the skill set of the people within the Scrum team, that tool stack they have got, and also the team members they have gotten in itself as well. And because of this, what happens? They cannot meet the definition of done. It seems impossible to them. And then what they start doing? They stop using the definition of done eventually as well. And it becomes optional to them. So I would like to ask you, many of you here, if you work in the Scrum framework and all, how many of you actually have got a definition of done? Great. Anybody? And Mark, have you seen few people who haven't got the definition of done?
Oh, for sure.
And this is something I have seen as well, that the things which are the hardest in the Scrum framework, okay, sprint goal, product goals, and the definition of done. These are the 3 things which are used least by the most of the Scrum team, because these things are hard. And human beings, they don't like hard things, isn't it? So that's why let's take it out, okay, and then say Scrum doesn't work for us. Yeah, has anybody hear this statement from the people as well? Scrum doesn't work in our company. Okay, but do you use product goal? No, we don't. We are unique. Oh, do you use sprint goal? Yes, we do. And our sprint goal is like complete item A, B, and C. Have you got definition of done? No, our definition of done, our product is unique. We cannot actually get to the definition of done. This is the big problem. Okay, so Scrum is not the problem, probably the systemic environment we have got, that's a problem here. Now, the second is having the definition of done is one thing, and keep improving that definition of done is completely another thing as well. Many teams I have seen that have got the definition of done probably written by someone else, maybe the decades ago, but they still keep on using the same definition of done, and their definition of done is very much like item tested, okay, item integrated, only 4 or 5 items, and that's it. They never refine the definition of done, and they never update the definition of done as well. And at least I can say the definition of done is the most context related thing. Hence, it will always be keep improving as you learn more as well. Now, third one is very much linked with the concept of Kanban. Okay, so in the Kanban, there is a concept of definition of workflow, which defines how the work flows from left to right towards the value, towards the done. And I have seen that many Scrum teams, they experience that they cannot understand their definition of done because they do not understand their workflow in itself, how the work flows. Their Scrum board or Kanban board are pretty much like to do, in progress, done. Again, there is no problem in having those to do, in progress, done. But what is this in progress is about? Have you got any multiple stages within that? Okay. And if you have got, what are the entry and the exit policies around those stages as well? And if you know this, probably you can understand the quality criteria that are needed as well. And the quality become your first principle to think about. Now the fourth one, again, a quite common one as well, which is you have got one product supported by many Scrum teams or product teams, and each one is having their own. And then we try to integrate the work after some time, maybe few months and all, and the kaboom, nothing works. It was working on my system. Now we have just integrated, nothing is working. Your team must have been at fault. Anybody has seen something like this? You do the integration and everything start falling apart? That could happen because of the teams are having the different definition of done and they are not aligned as well. Okay, the last one, the easiest thing that many teams they try to do as well, copy the definition of done from another team or another product and try to apply it there. I have got no problem with copy and paste, but use your smartness as well. Every product is unique. If every product is unique, probably their definition of done also going to be quite unique as well. Every product is also at that very different stages as well, and hence their definition of done is going to be unique. So do a little hard work, guys. Do a little smart work. Okay, don't just copy and paste, take it further as well. So now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start showing you a few tips and techniques as well. So the first, how to come up with your initial definition of done. So this particular technique has helped me a lot. So what I generally do is whenever I'm working with my Scrum team or teams, I first ask them to come up with everything that is required for our product increment to be released. Okay. For an example, it could be the unit testing, security testing, performance testing, regression testing, release notes, documentation, anything. And then once they have identified all these things, then identify what are the things that team can do with the skill set which they have got today at the moment. The skill set, talent, tools, and technologies. And once you have got this list, there may be many things which you still cannot do. Don't beat yourself up. Okay. Everybody has to start from somewhere. And this is where the art of possible comes in. The first thing that I was talking about, that many Scrum teams, they haven't got the practical or the pragmatic definition of done. Identify then that what could be the next thing from this list that you will be start building up as well. So for an example, one of your thing could be our regression testing take 1 month. And because our regression testing take 1 month, we cannot do it. And that could be your trigger for the next thing as well, that, okay, guys, let's start working towards adding testing. Okay. Probably in the future, start thinking about the continuous integration and the continuous deployment, the DevOps as well. Okay. And this is how your definition of done can get improved over the time period as well. Definition of done is never static. It is always improving as we learn more. And in the product development, we always learn more. Okay. There are no best practices in the product development. There are only good practices. Few will work, few will not. Let's try it out and see what works for us and what does not. Okay. Any question regarding this? Have you got any specific questions so far? No? If not, then let's talk about a few questions that you can ask when you are updating the definition of done as well. Okay, so for an example, from the previous techniques, we have got one initial definition of done, but then when the definition of done needs to be keep improving, I really like to ask these 3 questions to my team members as well. So the first one, what could be added to our current definition of done to improve quality? Okay, so for an example, we are having quite a lot of bugs. Okay, bugs are going to our production increment as well. What we can add? Pair programming, peer reviews, code reviews. You can add your internal processes as well that can help in improving the quality as well. Unit testing we can add. Okay, we can put the quality up front whenever we are thinking about these questions as well. And the second one, something that you can say that internal team process, something I was just talking about, pair programming. Okay, code reviews, those are the few things that you can also add to improve your definition of done as well. Now, also ask this particular question as well, that what are the critical skills that we are missing within our team that can take us closer to the done? That means closer to delivering the value as well. Okay, so in one of the large financial organization where I used to work, one of the critical skills that we were missing in our team was architecture. In our organization, we used to have an architecture team. So if our team, our product team and the Scrum team, if they have got any questions, we always need to go to those architecture team to ask those things and then come back. Now, this was coming in our way for getting done because architecture team, they were always busy. Okay. And because they were always busy, we are going to them, asking the question, and they're like, yeah, Nate, we will come back to you after some time. And that sometime could be a couple of months as well. And that was coming in our way to getting to that done as well. What then I did at that time was, obviously, you have to use your skills of negotiation and the diplomacy. So which I learned that, okay, as a Scrum Master, sometimes we have to master these skills of negotiation and the diplomacy as well. I partnered with some of the senior leaders within the organization, and it took me 3 months to bring those architectural skills within the team. And for that, we had to do a little bit of organizational restructure. But that one change actually helped not only my team, but also the 15 other teams we also had as well. So if we have got Scrum Master here, so guys, do not afraid of challenging the status quo sometimes. Big impediments mostly are sitting outside your Scrum team rather than inside your Scrum team. And you should have low tolerance towards those. Okay. So if one tip that if you want to take from here, that would be mine. Partner with the leadership and the management, especially the people who has got high stake in your product. Okay. That could be really, really helpful. Okay. So, and this is, I would like to share this quote from one of my favorite Scrum Mastery book, written by Geoff Voss, Scrum Mastery, How to Become Good to the Great Scrum Master. And in that, he has written that a good Scrum Master helps the team to meet the definition of done. Good. A great Scrum Master helps the team to extend their definition of done. Okay. So don't keep it static, keep improving. Keep improving towards that technical excellence, and that can help enable the self-management of your Scrum teams as well. Okay. Now, let's start talking a little bit about the workflow as well. So in Kanban, the workflow is that when we have got, let's say for an example, product backlog item, once you have got that product backlog item part of the sprint backlog, that which of those stages the product backlog item generally pass through and reach to the done. Okay. And this is, if you do not understand how the work flows from left to right, it becomes very hard for us to understand what quality means at each of these stages as well. Okay. So when you're defining your workflows, few questions that you should ask again. Okay. First one, how do we get to the done as a team? Now, this is about the team goals over the individual goals. So if you still having few things like, oh, I'm a developer, I own a product backlog item. Guys, none of the developer own the product backlog items. Team owns the product backlog item. Okay. And the product backlog items moves from the left to right. And this is where you can say the team goal over the individual goal mindset can start forming up as well. Okay. When you are defining that, ask this thing as well. What are the key activities we get involved in as well? Do we have to code? Do we have to test? Okay. Do we have to create some kind of analysis? Do we have to create some kind of architecture? What are the activities that we need to do to go from left to right when we have got an idea, and how that idea can turn into certain kind of value, what those steps look like, and those steps generally will call as the workflow stages. Once you have identified those workflow stages, ask few questions again as well, that what could be the entry and the exit criteria for those workflow stages. When we move from build to validate, what are the quality criteria we should have as well? And that focus on the quality can help in improving your definition of done over the time period as well. Yeah. So here I would like to show a couple of examples which I used in a couple of products when I was working. Though this is not the final definition of done, but it can give you an idea how the workflow can help in coming up with the definition of done as well. So something like this. Okay. So for an example, we have got to do, and this kind of definition of done is typical for any kind of software product. Let's say for an example. Okay. A typical software product generally can go through stages like design, build, validate, integration, and then once it is integration, it will turn into the usable, potentially releasable done increment. Think about what are the activities might be involved into those design phase. So design phase could be you have identified your acceptance criteria, you have identified your external dependencies, you have already created a UI as well, the front end. Okay, and then don't forget the certain regulations and the guidelines as a product that you have to follow as well. So for an example, if you are working in an organization, all the organizations, they have got architectural guidelines. All the organizations, they have got the brand guidelines as well. Some of the organizations, they also have to follow certain kind of regulations. So for an example, if you are in Europe, you have to follow the GDPR, which is called as the global data protection regulation as well. Okay, so these are the certain regulations sometimes you have to follow as well. Okay, then when it is going from design, it is going through the build as well. Okay, so in the build phase, it could be, okay, we have got certain unit test pass, we have to do certain kind of code reviews as well, our code has been refactored, we have completed our automation scripts as well. Okay, then the validate could be, okay, we have got our acceptance test pass, our usability testing has been completed, the functional testing has been passed and all that, and the integration, the security testing, performance testing, and all this thing is done. Okay. Now, sometimes when you see this, it looks like, oh, come on, it looks like waterfall, isn't it? Okay. But instead of having a big project waterfall, this is for how one product backlog item will move from here to there. Okay, so we have actually reduced our batch size in this case. Each product backlog item still needs to probably follow all these little things and the activities to get to the done as well. And once we start understanding that what does it mean for us, like design, build, validate, integration, and things like that, our definition of done will start coming up naturally as well, that what is quality means for us. Okay, now we do not always work on the software product, we also work on some non-software product as well. Okay, so I have got one more example for non-software product, and this is the example of last year when I was working in one insurance company, and I was leading one of the business transformation, and as part of the business transformation, we have to improve 150 processes within a company. So each of those processes were acting like a product backlog item for us. And then we understand that how we will take that process from to do to done. So certain stages we had for that particular kind of work was every product required a little bit of analysis, and then process redesign. Once the process has been redesigned, we needed to validate those new processes as well, and then we needed to implement those processes as well. So when we are going through those analysis, we identified that, okay, have you done some certain kind of needs analysis? Have you done identified all the duplicates, the bottlenecks, and all that? And also talks about certain tools as well, okay, where your as-is process may look like as well. In those to-be processes, then we start identifying, have you identified certain automation opportunities, okay, where that in which tool those to-be processes may look like as well. And then the validation phase as well. Who we have validated with? The users, okay? Have we done it with the process owner as well? has it been approved as well? And once it is approved, it is going through the implementation phase as well. And the implementation phase was pretty much around the documentation as well. Have you written our standard operating procedures? Have you written our user guides, manuals, and all that? And then processes are ready for use for our stakeholders as well. So again, it's completely non-software related product as well, but the concept still applies. You need to take your increment to the usable, valuable, potentially releasable increment. And that's what it means. Okay. So this having the understanding of definition of workflow always helpful in getting up to the definition of done as well. Now, what about the one product and many Scrum teams? How to do this? Okay. So Scrum Guide says that even if there are multiple Scrum team, okay, multiple Scrum team must mutually define the same definition of done. And reason for that is if we don't, then the integration issues we are going to face as well. Now, I give you one more example. I used to work in one automotive company, and there we were some 10, 11 teams. And I'm talking about when I was quite a naive Scrum Master, and each of our Scrum team, we used to have our own definition of done. Now, our definition of done used to include something security testing, because we thought we are doing a good work. But there were 2, 3 other teams as well that were not having those security testers with them, and they didn't include the security testing within their definition of done. For a few months, we all keep on working. We never integrated our work. So everything was looking fine within our team. And just close to our first release date, our work got integrated. And that's when we learned that all the testing got failed. Everything which was working fine within our system suddenly started becoming failing as well. Because we were having those integration issues, because together as our product, we didn't have that, okay, what are the quality means for us? We are all having the different meaning. And then when you try to combine it together, remember, definition of done is for the product, not for the team. And that is really important concept that we need to learn as well. That definition of done is for the product increment. It is not for the team. Okay. Now, few other things, few more tips that I would like to share with you as well. Okay. That when you are coming up with your definition of done, remember the definition of done is very context dependent, as I was saying it earlier. Okay, there are going to be no best practices, and simply copy and paste will definitely not work. Okay, so when you are coming up with the definition of done, you can ask few more questions to yourself as well. Think about, okay, again, that what makes our product usable, valuable, and potentially releasable. And that will require not just the team, probably maybe the stakeholders as well. Okay, you can take input from them. You can take your organizational inputs as well. If your organization, they have to follow certain kind of guidelines, audits, regulations, they will automatically become part of your definition of done as well. Okay. Then one more tip, that start doing the backward. Think about, okay, if we are releasing our product today, what are the things that needs to be get completed? And when you coming the backward from there, you can start identifying, oh, this needs to be get system test, security testing, performance testing, your UAT has been completed, usability testing has been completed. Okay, but the usability testing needs to be get completed. What are the other things needs to be get done as well? And when you start coming up with from those backward, you will be start identifying the activities that needs to be get completed to get to the done. Okay. When you do that, also think about the qualities that your customers and the users are asking for. So for an example, if you are working on a digital product, okay, in the digital product, if your product is on the application or on the web browser, what is the time it should take to get open up as well? what is the performance of your website and the application may look like as well. But then there is going to be quite a lot of technical things that your organization might be looking from your product as well. So for an example, okay, there are no security related bugs. In one of the product company where I used to work, we used to build the software product for the retail organization. So let's say, for an example, if you're going to any shop and the software that runs behind that tills, we used to build those kind of software. And in 2019, we decided to move from the UK and the Europe market to the US market. And few of our US clients, they asked, guys, we like your features, but can you please tell us how secure your product is? And when we actually ran the security scan on our entire product, we found so many bugs, so many critical issues, which then our potential client, they said, we are not going to go ahead with you, even though we had nice features and all. Okay. So think not only about what your customers and users are looking for, think that long term as well. If you are ignoring the definition of done, it can start creating the technical debt as well. If you want to stop accumulating the technical debt, you should actually think about making your definition of done stronger as well. Okay. So there are few tips and techniques again, guys, that you can take away for this. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about how definition of done can work with all the 5 Scrum events as well. Yes, there are 5 Scrum events, guys. Sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, sprint retrospective, and the definition of done. Sprint. And there is a little typo here, which I will fix later on, because this is not sprint review, this is a sprint retrospective. Okay, so let's start with this. Sprint planning. Okay, so when you are going through the sprint planning, okay, in the sprint planning is a space where developers, they need to identify the plan. Generally, they will be breaking those big product backlog items into the smaller tasks. And this is where the definition of done can help them a lot. Definition of done can help them to understand how much they can do. They need to create plan for, let's say, for an example, if your definition of done includes, we have to document things, or we have to create the release notes. To create the release note, it takes time, guys. And if it takes time, your developers, they need to plan for that. Okay. And sprint planning, when we look into the definition of done, it can help us understand how we are going to get done. And probably your developers can understand a little bit better how much they can do as well. Now, during the daily Scrum, if you have defined your definition of done and also the definition of workflow, daily Scrum, you can focus on getting to the done faster. So I hate those 3 questions that people ask in the daily Scrum. What I'm going to do today, what I did yesterday, and no impediments. I hate those. And instead of that, I would love to talk about the sprint backlog. I would love to talk about the sprint goals as well. Okay. And this is where the definition of done you can use is as well, that start talking about the work and the items which are closer to the done. Why? Because those items are very close to delivering the value as well. And that's why if items are in the test column, probably talk about those things first before talking about the analysis in itself. Maybe asking these questions, guys, this item is very close to the done. Is there something that we can do to pass it over to the done as well? And this kind of thing can actually increase the collaboration as well. When teams, they go into the sprint reviews. Now, definition of done is not just for the Scrum team, it's also very important thing for the stakeholders as well. And I always present the definition of done in every sprint review so that my stakeholders also know what is the quality means for us. What is the quality that our product, the increment that currently has got as well. And sometimes it can help us in having a really nice conversation. So in one of the product where I used to work, I'm talking about 2018-19, and That time GDPR, the Global Data Protection Regulation, was quite new. And I was working as a product owner. I had no clue about, to be honest, what the hell this GDPR is. So in the sprint reviews, I started presenting our roadmap and all, definition of done. And then suddenly our head of digital, he asked us a question. Guys, Lavaneesh, I love what you are currently doing, but I cannot see anything about the GDPR. And I was like, what the hell is GDPR, mate? And then he asked me a question. Okay, mate, I hope you are going to record the customer's data. I said, yes, we are building a loan application, okay, finance application. We have to record the customer data to check their credit scores and all that kind of thing. And then he said that then you must adhere to the definition of the adhere to the GDPR. And that the discussion actually triggered a conversation for us to include the GDPR within our definition of done as well, because our product needs to be the GDPR compliant, not just one product backlog item. Okay. Now the sprint retrospective. A sprint retrospective is a place where generally you will be doing the inspect and adapt of the definition of done. I always make sure the definition of done is a must topic for the retrospective. And I generally ask this question to our team as well. Guys, is there anything that we can do to enhance the quality? Our internal processes, any tools and techniques as well. Even though if there is no new item got added into the definition of done, just revisiting the definition of done every sprint retrospective will only take a few minutes, guys. But by that, the quality is entering into the people's head. And they will be always start thinking about the definition of done whenever they are building any product increment in itself. Now the sprint, which is the collection of all the 4 events. Now, this is the place where the actual work is happening. And our commitment towards having that done in increment, towards having that valuable, usable, potential increment helps the developers to make sure that we are always adhering to the definition of done, and that helps in getting those done increment as soon as possible. Sometimes during the sprint, the ideas can come up also as well that, okay, these are the new things that we need to have into our definition of done. Maybe record those and talk about those into the retrospective as well. And this is how the definition of done can be used and referred into all the 5 Scrum events as well. Okay, and here I will shut up. Okay, and I am ready for any questions that you would like to ask me as well. So I'll stop share.
So,
Yes.
Okay, I have got a question. So let's say sometimes when you work in a sprint, you may not have the actual users to validate against. So how does that work? Because okay, this is a question I want to ask. When we have a sprint goal that is a potential value, we do a work, right? And generally, if we have a definition of done, if it adheres to it, that's good enough to be a product increment, I would guess. Mm-hmm. So if we didn't have the actual users testing, because we probably didn't release it to production for the users, how does it work then?
So again, it's all about the art of possible, to be honest, Krishna. So if I can get the access of the users, that's great. Okay.
Yep.
If I can't, I would look for the opportunity for how close I can get to my users as much as possible. So I give you one example on this. So I used to work in a bank, and obviously when we were working on our business, on our application, we were into quite an early stages, and we cannot release that web app to millions of our customers because we haven't built that much of functionality, isn't it?
Yep.
So what we used to do in that case was, Krishna, that because we were most of our bank employees, they were also the customer of the bank as well.
Yeah.
So what we used to do was we used to call them as friends and families. Okay. And we used to take their inputs So we had some of our sandboxes and all, which was very much replica of the product in itself. And we used to ask certain employees into the various departments to go into those sandboxes and try to play with those features and give us some feedback as well. Yes, they were, I would say, not the real user, those millions of it, but that feedback that we were getting from them was still useful. So this is where I would say, look for the feedback. The closer the feedback that we can get, which is very much equivalent to the users and the market, that's our art of possible I would look for.
Yeah, that was a good position to win. But if we can't do that, then how do we? So yeah, that's one thing. Because I know, because you want to get a feedback, but then again, sometimes you may not want to. You may not be able to get it.
Okay. So in that case, Krishna, one thing I would also say is, if you cannot even get to the users or the customers, one department that can always provide you the very good feedback is the customer services. Because those are the people who talks to the customers day in, day out, and probably know the pain point of the customers best than anyone else. Okay, and this is something that you can do as well. Maybe invite a couple of those people and say, guys, this is what we have built. Now, when you hear to those customers as well, do you think, are we solving the customer's problem right? And so so one tip I always give to all the product owner is, so the first week of my any product owner journey, wherever I have done, 1 week I have always spent it with the customer service department. Just listening to those people, by understanding what kind of challenges those people are facing. That's something, the real problem, rather than someone coming from any department. One stakeholder feel, oh, this is what we need to build. But those are there is a lot of data and lot of inputs and of gold sitting with the customer services department. Maybe that could be one thing that you can try as well, Krishna.
Sorry, Lavaneesh, one more question. So let's say if you're a startup and you make an assumption about creating a product, you may not really have a customer at that point of time. How do you do it then?
Experiments. That's where we can do as well, Krishna. So maybe doing certain kind of focus groups. Again, I would say the feedback, how the feedback I can get as well. So I work a lot with quite a lot of startups, and yes, we haven't got any customers, but then what we do is sometimes we try to attend the focus group as well. Okay. And also we think of the personas. What are the personas we may get? And then have certain people like the customer interviews. And also maybe doing those kind of paper prototyping. And also you can use certain tools like Figma and pretty much create the customer journey, mimic that customer journey by creating a digital prototype as well. And this is something that can help you in understanding what our customers may want, whether that need exists or does not exist. And hence, experimentation is a really, really important part as well. And hence, I would say, please read this book. This book has got quite a lot of inputs around that how the experimentation can be built within the Scrum and the product teams. And don't keep that design and the delivery as a two separate parts. Probably we need to bring it together.
Thank you, Krishna, for those questions. We have
quite
a few. Lavneesh. Yeah, we have quite a few in the chat, Lavaneesh. Karen is asking, you mentioned earlier, they don't understand the workflow. When and how do you achieve understanding of the workflow? What impediments contributes to this lack of misunderstanding or understanding, sorry?
I will not blame anybody, and I will not pass the accountability to someone else. I would say, if you haven't got the definition of workflow, just go to a retrospective together as a team and identify the definition of workflow. Okay. I will just own it. Even as a Scrum Master, even as a product owner, as a developer, maybe that workflow is not right. And I'm pretty much say workflow is never right in the very first instance. You always improve that workflow as well. But for that, be agile in the agile adoption, isn't it? Just crack on with what you know at this moment and see and keep improving, keep inspecting and adapting. Your definition of workflow, your definition of done, they are never static thing. They will always improve as you learn more.
Thank you, Lavaneesh. And we have another question from Osni. I hope I'm saying that name right. Osni is asking, how do you handle a release? I mean, you have to deliver a big thing, maybe the sum of the sum increments. How do you deal with it?
So probably, Osni, you are talking about that. Okay, we are doing a big bang releases to a client, and then okay. Yes, we are thinking about releasing it there, but then how we can keep getting to the done stages? Is that what it means? Okay. So again, there are few tools and techniques that you can use also in that as well. So in one of the organization where I used to work, I was a part of one Dassault systems, and we used to use the toggle feature. Okay, so the toggle feature means is that okay, we have put all the quality in. Okay, it is in the production, but it is not visible to our users and our customers. So in a way, we have done all the security testing, all the performance testing, all the integration testing. So everything that is required from the technical perspective, we have got that, but it's just that we haven't given it to the customers because the customers, they cannot see it. And remember, we also need to understand that sometimes there is a cost of acquiring the release from the customer side as well. Sometimes they have to train their employees. Sometimes they have to train their people. And if we keep pushing the change to them, sometimes it could be a little bit disruptive for them. So in those cases, having those things like those, I would say the toggle feature and all could be helpful. And at least try to understand, okay, as much as you can close to the release. So hence you can say that, okay, maybe the potentially releasable, maybe it should be like, okay, as soon as I got this click and it is released, how far I can go there. And that's the art of possible I would look for.
Feature toggle must count as definition of done or acceptance criteria?
Acceptance criteria also is for your one particular product backlog item. Okay, so for an example, I have got a product backlog item called login. Okay, so if I have got login, my acceptance criteria could be okay, when the username and the password match, right? Okay, successfully log in. When the username and the password not met, decline. If it's more than 3, decline and then block it. That's pretty much the acceptance criteria, pretty much the scope of one product backlog item in itself. Whereas definition of done is, I would say, that overarching. So for an example, your product needs to be so passing the acceptance test would be the one of the criteria within my definition of done. That when you are building it, that acceptance criteria must be passed. But at the same time, if you are working in any, let's say, banking organization, you have to follow certain regulations. Those regulations might not fit for that particular product backlog item, but that regulation is applied for entire product in itself. So I would put it as well that, okay, my product needs to be compliant with this regulation. Again, if you are building a digital product, brand guidelines, all of our user interface always follow our brand guidelines and the color codes and the schema and the logos and all those kind of things, because that applies for the entire product. And this is where I would say, what takes your product to get to the release? And once you do that, that will help us in understanding our definition of done a little bit better. Was it helpful, Osni?
Thank you. Thank you, Lavaneesh. We have another question from Romy Lord. The question is, can you please elaborate on how to get everyone on board for a definition of done when it has a dependency on external vendors? Some stakeholders don't want to accept it during sprint planning.
Okay. How to get everyone on board is a really good question, isn't it? Yeah. And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Yeah. And what you're just talking about here is the one of the big organizational level impediment, which is that we are dependent on that external vendor. Now, here comes in few things like, okay, what kind of contract you have got with that external vendor? Okay, if the external vendor says that, okay, you have to give me the scope and I will deliver that scope, that's it. Okay, that's again, there's a big organizational problem as well. Okay, So whenever two organizations, I think they come in the picture, I think it's more complex than anything else. So few things that again we can do as well. This is something where the leaders and the managers within the organization, they needs to sit together as well. Okay, so I have worked into some organization as a product owner. Sometimes I have worked with our contract teams to just see our contracts and make sure that, okay, we are talking about the definition of done as part of that contract as well. Okay, so that we can talk about those things very early in the phases as well, because definition of done is never static. It will always be improving, it always be going on as well. But yes, it's much more complex, and probably you definitely need some support from the leadership and the management, so that both the organization's leadership, they can understand that. So hence, maybe you also need to understand, make sure that your leadership understand this definite importance of the definition of done as well. So don't run away from it. Keep fighting. Keep fighting.
Thank you, Lavaneesh. We have a couple more questions. Hopefully we can get that done. Candice is asking, any tips on making the definition of done visible in a virtual world?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, so I always have got, so when I'm working as a Scrum Master or the product owner, I always used to have my product wiki page. Okay, and on the Confluence, and that product wiki page always used to have few things like what is our product goal, roadmap, okay, what is coming in the next couple of sprints as well, okay, and also the definition of done. And I always used to keep that product wiki page as part of my email signature. Okay, so, and even when I'm sending it out to any of my let's say stakeholders, inviting them for the sprint review, I always used to say, guys, please have a look into my product wiki page. Majority of the information is already there. If you are satisfied with that information, good, don't come to the sprint review. Okay, if you want to discuss few things, please come along to the sprint review. And but through that, I was able to keep a lots of crowd away from the sprint review, people who are just coming and not being present there, which happens a lot in the sprint review as well.
Right. Thank you, Lavaneesh. And Mike is asking, are there any books or other resources you recommend on definition of done?
Any books? I think Fixing Your Scrum by Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller has got quite a lot of good inputs on it. And then the Zombie Scrum from Liberators, the Christian and Barry. It has got quite a lot of inputs on the definition of done. Christian and Barry, they have done a lot of research on this topic as well. And if you guys follow the Liberators, you will find their blogs and all. They are awesome. Okay, I have also written a couple of blogs on it. So maybe Anu, if you can share with the people later on. They are on the Scrum.org already, which is on this particular topic itself.
Thank you, Lavaneesh. We are at the top of the hour, but I'm just going to end it with this last question, if that's okay with you. Victor is asking how to partner. Victor is asking how to partner with the top manager, like you mentioned before, if there are middle managers in the way because of hierarchical structure.
That's it's like a chain, isn't it, in many organizations? Okay, if you have to go to the top, you have to go through those middle people as well. Okay, now one thing again from the hard lessons learned is there is always one person who is very heavily invested in your product, who really wants success of your product, and that person is the sponsor of your product, somebody who is actually paying for the initiative on which you are working. Generally, those people, they have got lots of power, but sometimes those people are lacking a lot of information. I would say that could be one person who you need to partner with first. Okay, and once you have got that partnership can open the door for the other partnerships as well. But that would be my first person to partner as well, even through those middle manager and all. Maybe you can pass that because that person is actually paying for it. Okay, and they really want that product to be success. Find that person, follow the money, from where the money is coming from.
Right. Thank you so much. We are at the hour and we really appreciate everyone taking your time today. Thank you so much, Lavaneesh. This was a brilliant topic. And as always, we learned a lot. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to Lavaneesh. The website and the links are there posted in the chat. Thank you all for coming in today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, bye-bye.